Good evening, everybody. Let us begin. Welcome and thank you for those of you who are here tonight in the building. For those of you who are on Zoom, welcome. Hello, Mike Daniel. We're going to get started now. Thank you, sir. Welcome. Like I was saying, you could be at Music in the Park tonight, but you're here with us. So for that, we thank you.
You're going to sing for us?
Yeah, right. So again, this is another edition of the Fly Safe program where we're trying to help promote continuing education of pilots, safer communities. So thank you for coming out and participating in some of these events. If you're doing wings, we appreciate that, where you're doing your knowledge activities like this. And then eventually you'll go off with an instructor and do your flight activities. So that's our Fly Safe spiel. Just some updates around the airport here. If you haven't noticed already, we got a giant construction project going on out there. Some taxing issues get a little funky. You can't really use Quebec right now. But does anyone have any questions about that while we're here that we can answer for you? Cool. Never mind then. The gliders are in full swing. If you haven't noticed, they're going now. They launch off of 2-0. They take up that northeast quadrant of the airspace. So if you're flying in here, you're going to stay out of that area. That's why it's right traffic to runway 20, and the tower folks will help keep you out of that space as well. For those of you on Zoom, if you're not super familiar with flying in Truckee in the summertime, we got gliders, and we keep them separated from the power deck. So look out for those gliders. Just for fun, I don't know if you've seen any of the slideshow when you're walking in here, but the pictures I've got on there, they're getting kind of old, kind of stale. If anyone has any cool photos of like flying in Truckee or our airport or anything, send it my way. I'd be happy to put them on the slideshow and get some newer stuff on there. There's like pictures from a few summers ago with my dog. But anyhow, our air traffic controller just received some strong accolades. They are part of Midwest HEC. It's a non-federal contract tower. And of Midwest HEC, Western Pacific region, where they've got, I don't know how many towers that they operate at, Truckee just received several awards, one for Tower of the Year, one for Manager of the Year, Larry Finney, as well as Controller of the Year, Todd. Anyway, yeah, the tower. Next time you key the mic, tell them congratulations, or just climb the tower and give them some pizzas or something. They really like that as well. So that's the tower. If you like coming to these events, you're in luck, because next month we're in for a real treat. It's going to get a little bit weird. It's going to get kind of funky. He's shaking his head because the Fly Safe program is going to Burning Man. So we're not actually going to Burning Man, but Burning Man is kind of going to come to us because we've got, he goes by Lone Wolf, I'm told. And Lone Wolf is the Black Rock City Airport flight operations manager. So Lone Wolf is going to come here and give a talk about what it's like to fly into the Burning Man airport. So if y'all are going to that, it's coming up, I think, end of July or early August, something like that. So that's going to be, it's going to be on a Wednesday, July 16th, same time, same place, same channel. So to make this interesting, in fact, we're going to have a Burning Man costume contest. For all of you who like to get dressed up all weird in Burning Man, we're going to make it interesting. And the winner of the costume contest here at the Fly Safe program is going to get 2 hours with a flight instructor. So you can finish your wings program, or you can do a flight review, or something where you're continuing your education. So you got a month to think about your outfits, get those together, and let's see how weird it gets next month, July 16th. So that's it for updates. Let's get to the reason you are all here. It is summertime. There's already been some fires in the area. We've got a helicopter based here. I think we're going to have another one pretty soon. And yeah, it's something we all live with. And when one pops up and there's TFRs, we need to know what to do about that. So without further ado, all the way from the Nevada County Airport Please help me welcome CalFire Battalion Chief Dave Krussow.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I don't have a cool name like Lone Wolf, but now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I will say that Lone Wolf is a cool name, whoever that is. But if I was alone on the fire, I'd be really uncomfortable. And I have to again thank you guys for coming here, because if I were given the choice between coming to see me or going to a music festival, I probably wouldn't be here. Thank you guys, I appreciate it. I really want this to be interactive. My whole point is providing education, answering questions, but providing education on what we do, how we operate, and most importantly, how you guys can operate safely in and around fires. Because if you're flying around California anywhere during the summer, you're going to be working around or potentially around some sort of fires, TFRs, fire traffic areas. What's the difference? What are they? When do they get established? How do we determine where our TFRs go? Where do we determine the limits of them? How long does it stay for? All those sorts of things. And then the very first part of my module, and I'll tell them the most important stuff at the beginning, focuses on how you, as I'll just say, general aviators, and us on the wildland firefighting side can make sure that we all get back to our airport safely at the end of any given day. The second part of my talk is really much more open forum, and it's going to be how we utilize aircraft to fight fires, how we coordinate, sequence, how we control the airspace. And the very last module part, we'll talk about like the retardant itself and how that works. But definitely, I want this to be open, interactive. If you have questions, if I say something and it brings up a question, ask me. I may tell you to hold on a bit. That might be my next slide. But I do want this to be interactive as we go through tonight. So like Dave said, my name is Dave Krussow. I'm the Battalion Chief for Air Operations for the Nevada Yuba Placer Unit of CalFire. So CalFire is broken up into 21 administrative units based on county lines. So our county has Nevada County, Yuba County, Placer County. We also have Sierra, et cetera. But in terms of our primary responsibility areas, so I work out of the Grass Valley Air Attack Base, which is in Grass Valley. It's one of the 6 original air tanker bases in the world. When the air program started, they put all 6 bases. We're here in California. The whole air tanker concept of wildland firefighting utilizing aircraft began here in Northern California. Any idea where the very first air tanker proof of concept test aircraft was and where the drop was? Someone's got to know. Very close. It was not Williams. It was in Willows. It was in Willows. It was Willows Flying Service. Any idea what kind of aircraft? It wasn't a 747. What'd you say? No, good guess. It was closer to a Stearman. Actually, it was basically a Stearman. It was an N3N. And it was an agricultural airplane. So it was a contractor that delivered agricultural spray products. And the Forest Service, Joe Eli was a fire control officer, came and broached the concept with him. And he's like, yeah, I can fix that. And went out in his hangar, and 6 hours later had built some doors underneath aircraft with a 50-gallon tank that he released with a pull rope and a catch release. And then went out and tested the concept in the summer of 1956. And everyone was pretty excited about it. And I think in the 1950s, we as a country, where we were coming out of, we definitely had already come out of World War II. We were big into the industrialization and technology was solving a lot of problems for us. And we took that mentality, that concept of what can we do with research and technology applied with what we learned with aviation, where aviation was in its heyday, ramp buildup. And we had all these surplus aircraft that were coming out of the military that were easy for people to get a hold of. And they started converting those aircraft into air tankers. And some of the very first ones were right in the little piece of property next to where, literally right next to my office. I look out. The guy who owns that is the son of the guy who originally built a lot of the original air tankers that were used in that era. And then 30 years later, he reconverted them back to the original configurations to then sell out to museums. So a lot of history. So my air base was one of 6. Any idea where the other 5 might have been in California?
Chico.
Chico's not. Chico was actually one of the more recent ones.
Oh,
But Chico seems like it would have been a logical one.
Chester.
Columbia, so down in Sonora was one. So Chester was not. Ukiah was. I'm sorry, it's not crude. It was called Hobart, which is by Clear Lake. Ramona, down in Southern California. Hemet Ryan. That 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, it was Grass Valley, Hobart, and it was Ukiah. Columbia, Hemet Ryan, and Grass Valley, which at the time was Loma Rica. So, anyways, that's not what tonight's talk is about, but some fun kind of general interest stuff. So, what is air attack? I'll say air attack a lot, and as I go through tonight's talk, I'm talking specifically about CalFire's aviation program, but the Forest Service has basically the same program. And in fact, at my base, it was a cooperative program from the day it started. So Joe Eli, that fire control captain I talked about that first started it, he worked for the Forest Service, but it's been an integrated interagency program since it started, particularly on the aviation side. So my air base, there's an air attack officer for CalFire side. There's an air attack officer for the Forest Service side. There's also battalion chief, who's my partner, who actually grew up, still lives here in Truckee, and worked here for the Forest Service for his whole career. So very local knowledge. So when we say air attack, so basically anything I say tonight, you can apply to the Forest Service or the federal side, other than they don't own their own aircraft. They do everything in contract. So we provide air support for the ground forces. What does that mean? That means we utilize a variety of different platforms, and that's growing, increasing. We're now utilizing Intel gathering aircraft. They can do mapping missions and all that kind of stuff. The air attack platform, a lot of people call that the spotter plane. That's where I work. Air tankers, which are the actual workhorse, the ones actually doing the work. And then obviously helicopters. And now we're using a lot, and you're going to see a big transition. We're going to push a lot more into unmanned aircraft, so drone type stuff. Now it's important as I talk that I really have to throw out this disclaimer right off the bat. I am not a pilot. I went to ground school when I was in college because I had these great aspirations of eventually someday being a pilot, but I ended up taking a detour, went into medical stuff for a long time, worked on a helicopter as a flight nurse and a rescue swimmer, and then came back into firefighting because I just wanted to be a fireman when I grew up someday. And then I've been in the air attack or the aviation program for 5.5 years. So this will be my 6th fire season in the aviation program with CalFire. So my job is to sit in the back. And we'll talk about my aircraft here in another slide too. But basically, I'm air traffic control. And as I look at this definition right here, it says, what is air traffic control? It says the purpose. The air traffic control system exists to provide a safe, orderly, and expeditious flow of air traffic. That is exactly what my job is, along with a whole bunch of other things. But that is exactly what we're doing. We're trying to keep a whole bunch of aircraft that are coming from different directions that are working in a very tight, confined area, in a very dynamic airspace, and try and make sure that they all come in, that they're orderly, that it's safe, and it's what was the word? Expeditious flow. It's a huge part of my job. Faster I can process aircraft in and out, whether it's helicopters dropping on one part of the fire or tankers dropping on another part. The more impact we're making on the ground, the bigger difference that we're making. A lot of people don't really have a good idea of what CalFire aviation is or wildland fire aviation. So I have a short little 5-minute video here. This is all videos I took either with my phone or off a GoPro. So it's not high-end photography, but it'll give you kind of a peek behind the curtains of what it is all involved in the aviation side. So you'll see some behind-the-scenes stuff of air tankers. You'll see some air tanker bases. You'll hear some of the radio traffic when I'm in the aircraft. We're listening to 9 different radios at the same time on a really busy fire. All 9 of them can be talking, and it's overwhelming. So you hear some clips where that's going on, and anyways, this is kind of fun to give you a little peek behind the scenes here.
2 handles, 4 pins, and a harness up front. 2 handles, 4 pins, 1 harness, pink checklist, code 5000. All right.
2381 on force overload and lifting like well developed and probably over 20 acres now.
Okay, just pick up the fire detector at that pond and carry it back towards the hill. Do a coverage level 6 and try to put the whole load in the green at the edge.
Any aircraft in the Robinson Mill area, airtime 5037 miles south, 4000 up America 2996, 2 tankers in tow, identify 122.925.
Skytena, copy, you'll be south of the TFR near the Rutherford area, 8000, altimeter 29990. Unit with traffic for blast air attack on 12292. 912-911-40-105-9089
All right. So CalFire Aviation, we have now over 70 aircraft. We have more aircraft than a lot of small air forces around the world, and that's growing. 23 air tankers, these S2 air tankers, which is this guy right here. It's the workhorse. It should look familiar to most people that have lived in California for any time at all. We have 16 of the OV-10 Broncos, which is this aircraft right here. That's the one that I work in. It's really well suited for what we do. It was actually built for the Marines to do the same exact mission profile that we use it for. So in the Vietnam War, and they would use it as a forward air control to control the airspace. So when the ground forces requested air support, they would come in, figure out what was going on, call on all the air support, and then specifically coordinate, which is exactly what we're doing. So it's really well suited for what we do. 14, actually 15 as of tomorrow. We're taking delivery of our 15th S-70, and we'll have 16 when we're all done, of the new S-70 Firehawks aircraft. 1,000 gallons of water capability, can carry up to 8 crew, and has a hoist on it all the time. So if we ever need to do emergency hoist, that's an option if we have injured firefighters. And then don't have a bullet point for it, but right here we have 7 C-130s. At this point, we have 2 of them that are in service. They're tanks. Third one will be brought into service here by August. Ultimately, we'll have all 7 of them. We'll have the tanks put in them, and those have 4,000 gallons, so they carry 4 times as much as our regular tankers. And it's an extremely capable aircraft, extremely capable platform. 13 air tanker bases up and down the state, and 10 helitack bases or helicopter bases for the CalFire side. And then the Forest Service has about as many as well. And this is what's starting to become more relevant to you. So every fire that gets dispatched gets 3 to 6 aircraft sent to that fire right from the time that the 911 call comes in. So you're driving over Interstate 80, you're out hiking in the woods, you're at home and your neighbor's house is on fire and it starts getting the brush on fire. So you make your call to 911. As the 911 call taker is talking to you, they're typing in on a computer that address and location information and what the incident type is. And based on what our dispatch level is, based on the time and the weather conditions as we go through the day, it will automatically make a recommendation for a set amount of equipment. And that equipment is dispatched right from the beginning. So no matter how small the fire is, once we move into full fire season, you'll be getting anywhere from 5 to 8 or 9 fire engines, 2 water tenders, 2 bulldozers, 2 hand crews, a fire chief, and 2 air tankers, 2 helicopters, and the air attack platform, all being dispatched from one phone call of, hey, I just drove by this and saw this emergency. Okay. And that's pretty important here in just a second. The air tanker bases and the helicopter bases are positioned strategically throughout the state. The intent when they built all these was trying to have enough coverage area over the state that we can have aircraft over any fire within 20 minutes of the time that fire is reported. Okay, so that was the mentality, that was the strategy, as they were building all these air tanker and helicopter bases. The goal then, as it is now, for CalFire is to keep 95% of our fires 10 acres or less. And we're actually quite successful at that, which mostly means that 95% of our fires, nobody ever hears about. All right. And that's the way we want it. All right. But it's important also to understand that, yes, the fires that make it on the news are in that 5% that get outside of that. They start getting very, very large. Those are the ones that get the news and the media and the attention and social media, and everyone can see the smoke. But we're working fires every day. Yesterday, I went to 3 fires just out of my base. One of them was the one down in Placerville that ended up going to 180 acres. So that's the biggest fire I've had yet this summer. But I started this year. We started in May 15, and I've been doing an average of 2 to 4 fires per day since May that I've responded to my aircraft to. So we're a lot more busy than a lot of people understand or realize. But it reflects a lot of times we go out there and we don't have to drop retardant. We don't have to. Sometimes we don't even get all the way there. The fire engine gets there and says, this is a small little 20 by 20 spot. We just put it out ourselves, cancel the aircraft. We all turn around and go back. All right. So you're like, well, who covers the expense of that flight? We, the taxpayers, cover it. But I can also tell you that when, like yesterday, they get out there and they're like, oh my goodness, this fire is already 5 to 7 acres by the time the first fire engine gets on scene, that we showed up to that fire. So it was about 15 minutes after dispatch. We got there with a C-130, a 737, and myself. And right behind that was 2 helicopters, and we still couldn't quite hold that one in. But it's a very aggressive stance. It's something that a number of other states, particularly as our climate shifts and wildfires becoming much more of a problem, that a lot of other areas, organizations, and states are looking at that model of, like, you know, we need to lean a little bit more aggressive on the front, because it's very easy to put out a fire when it's small. It's very challenging to put out a fire when it's very, very large. So a minimum of 3, but probably closer to 6 aircraft from the time the fire is first reported. Okay. This is a map of California. So you can see, so obviously Tahoe would be right here. So this is kind of where we're hanging out, up in this area. This area of green is kind of my first response area. So we overlap and cover each other a bunch, but this would be the area that my air attack base is primarily responsible for. The next closest base north of me is in Chico. Next closest south of me is down here in Sonora. I guess down here. And going to the west, the next closest one is over here in Sonoma. So this area of the foothills in particular is kind of my priority, or my primary response area. Now, all the red on here and pink are fires that they've had in the last, I think, 10 years that were 5,000 acres or larger. So you can see there's been a lot of fire activities. This was the Mendocino complex. This was the Park fire last year. This was the Dixie fire. This was the campfire. This was another part of the Dixie up top there. This was the Caldor here. The Lake Napa complex, all down in here. It's been a really, really busy last 6 or 8 or 10 years for fires in our area. But what I'm rather proud of, not that I can take much responsibility for it at all, but I'll go ahead and throw it out there, is there's not a lot of really bright red big fires here. We lost the Mosquito, and then there's of course the Caldor, which came all the way across and down into the Tahoe Basin. That was the second fire to ever cross the Sierra Divide. You know what the first one was? The Dixie. Nice job, burning at the exact same time. And I was positioned right between them, so I was actually fighting both of those fires. That was a summer I hope never have to go through again. But it definitely has changed how we have to be as citizens, as homeowners, as property owners. It's a significant deal. And this is what I want to talk about right here. So this is a poster, and I have a couple here. So I talked to Dave, I'm leaving some so we can put up on the watch. There's one on the back right there. In the last year alone, I had 5 incursions of aircraft into the fire traffic area on active fires that I was working on. 2 of those got within a half a mile of me, nose to nose, same altitude. And one happened early morning, brand new fire, and it was absolutely a near miss collision. All my pilot saw, I was looking at the fire, we just got there, and my pilot saw a tire go right over his bridge skill. He thought we were dead, like literally thought we were dead right there. Like he didn't sleep for 3 nights. It was that close of an incident. We know the pilot, we know what was going on. We talked to him afterwards. And he was in an effort to try and help, saw a new column of smoke relatively early in the morning, knew the air tankers fly low and close to the fire, so thought I'll just come in high and make sure that this fire's been reported, make sure that people know about it, and then I can call it in if we need to. So I'll take a quick bridge there. If you are going to call a fire in and you're flying, how would you do that? What's the process? Who do you notify? How do you get a hold of 911 when you're flying? ATC?
Yes, yeah, I reported ATC.
Yeah. So, and whatever variant of ATC that ends up being, right? Whether that's Oakland Center, whether that's a local control tower, whether that's flight service station, right? You're going to relay that in. And we do get calls like that a couple times this summer of people calling in fires, which I'll come back to here in a few minutes. So pilot was out flying around by himself, saw a new fire start, flew over, said, oh, I'm going to stay up a little bit high above the air tankers. Well, who flies high above the air tankers? I do, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But the controlling aircraft, the aerial supervisor, so the air attack, flies up above what we call the stack, right? So every aircraft is assigned a general area, and we have a playbook as we come in, and I'll talk more about that in a bit. Anyways, this pilot came over, he stayed high, and ended up almost killing all 3 of us because he was right at the same altitude that we were. He broke away and flew out. Is there a channel that everyone in the state monitors? To an extent, but are we all broadcasting exactly where we are at all times? Does everybody have ADS-B? Does everyone even have a radio? Right? Are you required to have a radio to fly in the airspace, in Class G airspace in California? You're not required to. So inherently, there's some challenges in our system, right? So we, as pilots, as aviation professionals, have to come up with other ways to make sure that we stay out of this environment where we're going to find ourselves nose to nose with another aircraft. And that's what tonight's about. That's really my passion. In CalFire we have, and in the Forest Service, a SafeCom system where we self-report near misses, mechanical issues, and things of that nature. My air base for 2 years in a row had more aerospace incursions than anyone else in the state. Right? And here's the reason. So coming back to this picture, a lot of traffic up and down the foothills, right? Anybody going north and south through California, I would fly over the foothills rather than fly up and down and say, oh, there's Fresno, there's Stockton, right? You're gonna come over where it's scenic, right? It's pretty. And then particularly relevant for you guys, anyone that's going back and forth to Tahoe or up here to beautiful Truckee, particularly if they're coming out of the Bay Area or Sacramento, are coming right through the 80 corridor, right? It's the lowest pass. There's an airport, Blue Canyon, if you get in trouble. and it's a big transit area. That's the same, by the way, general areas where I get most of my fires, right? So an average day, we got a whole bunch of aircraft flying around there. We have a lot of pilots who can't or don't hang their aircraft down in the Bay Area or in Sacramento because they come up into the foothills where it's a little bit cheaper. There's a bunch of flight schools in our area. And again, it's a scenic, it's a fun area to fly. There are a lot of general aviation aircraft in the area, particularly that I work in, especially relative to other air bases up and down the state. So on a Saturday, it looks a little bit more like this, right? And if we throw a fire in the middle of that whole thing, and now I have air tankers, helicopters, news media, law enforcement, all flying in and out of and back and forth and around to that fire, you can see where we inherently have a system that's a high risk for having airspace incursion issues. So that's the root of the problem, right? So that's why we're here tonight, and that's kind of some things I want to talk about.
So you talked about having sort of this immediate response when we get a 911 call. How quickly does the TFR do?
Excellent question. So what was your name? Bob is about 8 slides ahead of me. So I'm gonna tell him to hold his jets just for a second, because it's a perfect question, but I want to come back to that. And
I got
the whole
caught
issue is
last
TFR.
year. That's fine.
You got caught in one, caught underneath one where you couldn't get out.
No, there was nothing on the moving map. There was nothing on my iPad. There was a TFR. There was
Newly established.
newly established.
Yeah.
And it had to come up in.
Right. Yeah, that totally happened.
Just curious, back it up a little bit. When you have to air this, with the guy who is on fire, you talk to him afterwards. Did you see you guys?
He did. And he was trying to avoid us, which is why we saw the tire, not cockpit. And we were on a right-hand turn. We come over a fire the very first, we go into right-hand orbit. The tankers will go into left-hand orbit. And so we were coming right-hand. It was just a small, turns out it was a mobile home fire. It hadn't even gotten into the vegetation at that point. So it was a really small loop in the bottom of tight, tall trees. So for us, we have to get really right above that to see down and see even what's on fire up there. So we try and be on the lookout for other stuff, but I would expect, I'm talking to the pilots, it's a lot more difficult to see other aircraft than you think it is. ATC will call and say, hey, you got traffic 2 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or 2 o'clock, 500 feet above you. And you're like looking and looking and looking and looking and finally like, oh, there he is. Right. And if you don't get that heads up, right, it's even harder to see. And this was it was a Cub. It was a very small airplane already to begin with. And he was looking for fire. We were looking for fire. And it almost went a lot different. Oh, I said 8 slides. It's really the next one. Here, Bob's right on cue. Nice job. You can get an extra cookie. So fire traffic area versus a TFR. Okay, so we're gonna have two rooms of conversation. We're gonna have the TFR room, and then I'll walk over here and we'll have the fire traffic area, or FTA. So TFR, I'm in a room full of pilots. Someone can tell me probably what a TFR is, just in a very general sense. This is the interactive part. Everyone's like, oh man, I don't want to mess this one up. If you can make it really general. First of all, what's the stand for? Temporary flight restriction. Okay, what is it? What does it mean? What does it mean to Bob? Stay away. Right? I'm not allowed to go in there. And there's very specific rules, and there's actually 5 different types of a TFR. A presidential TFR is different than an emergency TFR, or it's actually a disaster response TFR. I think is the specific term for it, because it can be put up for a hurricane. I was down at Hurricane Katrina for a week and a half. There was a very large TFR over the hurricane area in Louisiana. So TFR basically means I can't be in there unless I am doing what? I'm involved in what? Firefighting, right? I'm involved in solving the problem. And I have clearance from the aerial supervision, whomever that is. Okay. So there are other reasons that you can go through a TFR. One, if you're law enforcement can go in or out of a TFR. That kind of falls under they're helping to contribute to the solution. There's another group of pilots that are allowed through a TFR that anyone in this room could find themselves in situation. A filed IFR flight plan. So that one kind of surprised me. My first or second summer that I was air tacking, we were on the Lake Napa complex, working just north of Guerneville, and super busy. Like the fire was, it was a busy time, and I had a whole bunch of air tankers running right back and forth between Sonoma and the fire, and I had a Alaska Airlines come right underneath me, flying right through. Should not have happened. It was legal, but there was definitely a breakdown in communications between center, departure, and tower to allow that to happen, because that jeopardized, more importantly to me, it was the 80 people on the airplane. But legal, right? Legal. So TFR, it's a legal structure, right? There are legislative codes that say who can be in a TFR, who can't, when we establish it, how we establish it, and all those things. Okay. So over here, I'm going to talk a little bit about a fire traffic area. All right. So an FTA is basically, for us in the wildland fire side, is a playbook. So if you're playing high school football or college ball or whatever, right? My son was doing that, and he had to learn all the plays for the team, right? So that he knows where he is at any given time, where he's supposed to be, and where everyone else is supposed to be on the team, and what they're trying to accomplish, right? An FTA is a communication protocol for us in the wildland fire side, on the aviation side, so that we all know where we're supposed to be over this new or rapidly evolving incident, so that we're coming in from, no matter which direction we come in from, we know where we're supposed to be. So the fire traffic area, going back to the poster again, it's on the back wall that I showed you here a couple slides ago. Right here, tells us where we're all operating. So from the ground, so AGL, up to the first 500 feet, that's the helicopters area. Then we give 1,000 feet of vertical separation. And then there's the air tankers area. So they'll come into an orbit at 1,500 feet over that fire. And they'll do a left-hand turn. And no matter where they come into that radial, they're grabbing a left-hand turn. And my job as the air supervision is to clear them in and tell them who else is in the order and where they are in the number order. Okay. And then up on top at 2,500 feet is the aerial supervision. So the air attack. Okay. If I have a relief air attack coming in to take over my fire, if I have a trainee air attack coming in to supervise, or sometimes different functions like that, they'll be 1,000 feet above. So we try and always keep 1,000 feet of separation between each function, right? And then it's my job to keep then a horizontal separation between what's happening on the ground, all right? So the air tankers don't just come in orbit, right? What do we want to do with the air tankers? Drop them down and have them drop the retarder. Well, now they're going into whose zone? Helicopter zone. So my job is to separate that zone and keep the helicopters separate from the air tankers, and we'll sequence stuff back and forth. It's something that we have to do a lot in California, is very tight sequencing. It's the only world I've ever known, so I really can't speak to it, but other than to say, I know that there are, especially talking to some of my partners and stuff, there are air attacks, tanker pilots from other parts of the country that won't come and work in California because they're not comfortable working in the tight, super sequenced environment that we are. But we have to be that aggressive just to keep up with the fires. Yesterday, we had a very tight I had 8 aircraft, 11 aircraft total, 8 air tankers, 3 helicopters, and then myself, all on a fire that only went to 800 acres. No, it didn't even go that to 180 acres. All the aircraft in that tight confined space, and we still weren't keeping up with the fire. It kept getting away from us, getting away from us, getting away from spotting. But the fire traffic area is our plan for how we're setting up that airspace, and you'll see it looks a lot like a Class Delta airspace. All right, and it's based off the same premise, the same control objectives, and the same even dimensions. It's a 5-mile circle radius off the center point and all that sort of stuff. All right, so fire traffic area is a communication protocol. When does a fire traffic area get established? Every wildfire, right? Because it's our playbook, right? Every time we come to a fire, and there's certain things I have to do coming in. I have to make blind calls coming in on certain frequencies. So as I'm coming in from one side, so yesterday I was coming in from Grass Valley side, and my first C-130 was coming in from McClellan. All right, both converging on the exact same point on a map, right? So he's going to come in 1,500 feet above the fire. I'm coming in 2,500 feet, but we're talking starting at 12 miles out and working out so that we can tell who's going to get there first, and then who's going to be the controlling entity of that airspace. And other air tankers are coming from other directions. Okay, so for us, the fire traffic area gets established from the time that the first aircraft gets on scene of that incident. Okay, when does a TFR get established for a wildfire? Does anybody know that? Whenever we decide we need one. Okay, I would establish a TFR right off the bat, except that it's one, not practical. Two, it takes a lot because I can put in a request for a TFR, but it has to go through several levels of approval, both on the fire agency side and on the FAA side, right? And we have to, it has to fit in with everything else that's going on. When I was working on the Santa Clara complex, super large fire, burning down lots of homes, big emergency, but right on the east side of San Jose, what also is happening over and above San Jose? San Jose International, Oakland International, San Francisco International, and a lot of stuff that's kind of important. I can't just throw up a TFR and block up the whole Bay Area. All right. So all my TFRs will get processed as a request, and we put in a request for ceiling up to 4,000 feet above the ground and got denied. We only got 2,000 feet above the ground so that they could keep all the traffic moving in and around the Bay Area that was going on for that. That all takes time. It takes an average of 3 to 4 hours for a TFR to actually show up on your ForeFlight after the time I put the request in. So I don't generally put in a TFR request unless I know we're going to be there for a minute. So like even yesterday's fire, we were super busy. I never established a TFR or requested a TFR.
Wouldn't that happen if you restricted to 2,000 feet or below?
No, I just have to then work with ATC to break into their, whatever it is, Charlie Delta Airspace. And so that's where my pilot's then talking to them, and then they'll give us a little piece of our space and be like, all right, you can bring aircraft in. One for us that we have to do all the time is Beale, right? Beale has a TFR most of the time. And it's a Delta Airspace with an Echo as well, I think, Echo Approacher. Anyways, it's already kind of complex for how rural it is. That's where a lot of our fires are, is in that Yuba County area. So we work with whoever the controlling entity for that is, whether it's Beale or whether it's Oakland Center. So my pilot will be talking to them. They'll give us a chunk of airspace, right? You can have everything starting 2 miles west of the runway, or everything 2 miles off the center line, blah blah blah, and then we work it out so that I can move my aircraft in and out of whatever that space is. So I can still move up and take that airspace, but we had to get clearance to get up into that airspace. Good, excellent question.
So presumably ATC is providing guidance to everybody who's on flight following or an IFR flight.
Ideally.
But what about the traffic that's up there that's not equipped and not talking? How do you deal with it?
Hard left turns. Yeah, that is the question. I come do things like this, right? Excellent question. Excellent question. So going back to the poster, what we're saying is stay 15 miles off of that smoke laterally. All right. If you're going to go over it, give a minimum of 5,000 feet AGL over that fire. Minimum. I would suggest going a little bit more to get over and away from that airspace. Okay. Going back to my situation with the co-pilot, there is no such thing anymore as a secret fire in California. Right? We used to have like 80 lookout towers up and down the state. We have well over 1,000 cameras on every mountain, peak, Peter site, towers, casinos, all kinds of places. There's not a lot of places in the state that aren't covered by a camera. There's a few, but most of them are deep into the forest. But definitely anywhere that's in the main area, we see those smoke probably before you do. And I regularly go on fires that nobody ever reports. For the last 3 years, I've probably gone on 10 fires at least that no one ever reported. We saw it on the camera, sent a dispatch, got out there, saw that it was actually a wildfire, put it out, all went back home. Nobody called 911. And everybody in the state, minus maybe 3 people, have a cell phone and a means of communicating. Backpackers are calling in fires, right? From lightning and stuff like that. We also, going back to the intel side, we know where every downstrike or lightning happens every morning after that lightning storm came through. And we have aircraft that go up and specifically look, they'll pull up a map and take cameras, IR, thermal, heat seeking cameras, and look for any wildfire starts in any of those places where we see any of those downstrikes. So even lightning fires aren't really getting away from us at this point in terms of understanding that they're there. So the 10 years ago, when you're like, oh no, maybe someone doesn't know about this fire, that's old history. All right, that's analog phone stuff. So
You said every morning, but are you getting close to being able to buy out?
yeah, great question. So we actually have the capability right now. Our planes can go up and fly whenever they want. In terms of our Intel aircraft, they're flying King Airs, mostly pressurized all-weather aircraft with sensors that work day or night. So if we have like a big dry lightning thing coming through the state, then absolutely we're putting those guys up at night. Excellent question. You got to get in, right? Yeah.
So you said that you don't have out-of-state resources that come in because of your rules, the way you fly. But do you ever go over the state line into Nevada or in Oregon if there is a fire that's going from California into an adjacent state? Does CalFire ever deal?
Yeah. So the question is do we ever operate out of state, or do we ever bring out of state resources into California? And part of what brought this up was my earlier statement that there are certain pilots around the country that don't want to come work in California. That's not to say that we don't get aircraft coming in front, like a tremendous part of our aerial support stuff, all of it on the Federal Force Service side. The Force Service is a federal agency, right? Their aircraft, they'll go all over the place. So my partner who works at my air attack base, who's a Force Service air attack, regularly goes to Texas or to Alaska or to the Midwest or wherever the fires are, and they move. So all their assets move all around the whole country. California stuff moves all around California. We don't often go out of California because if you look at everything costs money, right? What bucket of taxpayer money funds CalFire? It's state of California residents. It's all of us as property owners and housing owners. So we tend to keep our stuff in California to protect California, but particularly because Forest Service, being a federal agency and paying they're funded out of our federal tax dollars, they're going and moving wherever stuff is around the country. So there's a lot of times when California doesn't have a lot of fires going on, but we have a high fire threat, they'll still move a lot of Forest Service out to where Arizona or Colorado or where the fires are. So the CalFire stuff stays back to protect the state interests in that respect.
What I was getting at is we're right here on the state line. We have a process.
Yes. So 25 miles, nautical miles into the state is our kind of our generic area. So all the time, my airbase comes over here usually once or twice a year to fight fires along the Sierra front. Sorry, reorient myself. Over here, along the Sierra front country, working out of Stead. In fact, we keep some of our aircraft have to have some alcohol water injection stuff to help. And we keep a trailer of that at Reno Stead Airport to support our aircraft coming over here and doing stuff. But 25 miles is our
all these fires we have throughout the state. What's the percentage that are naturally caused? That's the percentage that are human caused.
Excellent.
Not even arson, like the fire
human related causes.
Paradise one that was human
It
caused.
started from power lines, right?
Exactly.
So I don't know the exact number. Obviously, it changes from year to year, but basically, somewhere around 90% of our fires are human-caused fires. Human cause can be a vehicle operating poorly, a train, a dragging chains in a car, power lines, infrastructure, house fire, like things that happen because humans were here, right? Our natural causes for fires are pretty straightforward. There's one: lightning. So now the lightning can be the most devastating one. Some of these massive fires I showed you earlier were from bad lightning years. But yeah, 90% are basically human caused.
How do you decide how high to make?
So excellent question. How do I decide how high to make my TFR? I'm going to take, first of all, if the fire's new, I'm really, really busy in the aircraft. So we'll keep it super simple. We'll just I'll put in my first request for 5 nautical miles off the center point of the fire, right? Going back to our class Echo airspace kind of a style, right? Or Delta airspace. As far as height, I'll usually figure out what altitude I'm at, add 2,000 feet to it, so I can have relief aircraft come in and out, and then cap it off there. Okay. My intent, and then when I get back and I land, so my relief comes out, takes over the fire, we can do about 3.5 hour shifts, basically, is the fuel load that we have, depending on how far we have to go back to our base. And then a relief air tech comes out to take over for us. At that point, then I can sit down. My air base sits right next to our command center, so I can literally walk downstairs and we can pull out a map and I can talk to the National Airspace Coordinator somewhere in the Midwest. I don't remember exactly where. But literally talking on the phone, and I'll pick out a polygon and be like, we can make it from here to here to here. And my intent is to be very cognizant of the other needs and resources that need to use that airspace. So I said my first career was flying around in a medical helicopter in Northern California. So we were dealing with these TFRs all the time. And back then, nobody was flying into the TFR at night. I mean, the wildland stuff wasn't using the TFR at night because there was no nighttime operations. So sometimes we would kind of try and sneak through, like, especially you get these really big Northern California fires that can have TFRs that go 40, 50 miles wide, right? It can add 20 minutes to your response time going to a car accident, right? It's a big deal. So coming from that world, I'm very cognizant of the impacts that TFRs have on the rest of the world. So I'll try and make mine as small as I can, but big enough to allow that fire to grow, and big enough to allow us to have safe fire operations. That's my number one priority. Now, as we look at the TFRs, common one for me in my area is the Georgetown Airport down here, right? The mosquito fire, the trailhead fire, all these different fires, right? It seems like there's a couple little airports that seem to get caught in these TFRs all the time. Auburn Airport is another one. So we really try and work around that as best as we can, taking in those kinds of things. But the short answer to your question, 2,000 feet above what I'm flying at. So, and then as far as who establishes it, it's the air attack, aerial supervision over that fire, determines the need, and then establishes the parameters, the size of that, and put in the request, it goes to the FAA, and then comes back as approved, and it pops up on your full flight.
Are you putting the request in by radio? You're just calling it?
My initial request will be by radio, and then, but when I start to get detailed, I'll just talk with you. So we talked about this a little bit with a poster, but this is kind of playbook. The helicopters are 500 below. The aircraft are talking to each other, starting at 12 miles out, and then again, if we haven't heard, they've gotten clearance into the airspace at 7 miles, then they'll hold out, and then the tankers will orbit up here. They drop down to maneuvering. Once the first one will drop down once I give them their target stuff, so they'll split the difference between the helicopters and the orbiting. I'll talk about this later, and then once I clear the helicopters out, then they'll clear them all the way down to do their drop. We'll do their drop and then take off, and I'll either put another tanker in behind them or we'll bring the helicopters back into that airspace. The diagram wise for us, this is the NWCG, so this is National Wildfire Coordinating Group. This is not FAA. All right. So again, the fire traffic area is not a legal structure. It's not a FAA structure. It's something that we use in the wildland firefighter side. Okay. The challenge with this, how do you guys as a pilot know where a fire traffic area has been established? So he's got the answer. What's your answer? There is no way to know, right? I can't put it on ForeFlight, right? I can't expect you guys to be listening to the radio because we're all listening to all different radio frequencies, right? Each fire gets its own set of radio frequencies. So really the only way to know that there's a fire traffic area set up is to know activity that's going on. Fortunately, most fires still put out smoke. So if you see smoke, stay away from where the smoke is, 15 miles laterally, okay? Where it becomes particularly challenging is if it's a tiny little fire, it's not putting out much smoke. My fire engines get there, I get there, they put the fire out, I stay with them for probably 20 minutes just to make sure there's no spot fires and doesn't get away. So that's 20 minutes. I'm circling around a spot on a map with no smoke. You don't know that I'm there, other than hopefully you have your ADVSB enabled or something, or TCAS, and just being. Yeah, that is a good one. You see a bunch of aircraft in one spot. That's a great indication. So it's yes, absolutely. All of the CalFire. Yes, and all of our contract stuff. So like this Chinook down here, That one's contracted for us. Everyone's required to have that now. So ForeFlight is gonna be your best, answer to that.
So I have a feeling that you're so busy on all those frequencies of managing all this traffic to attack the fire, that you're not talking to NorCal or Oakland Center or anything like that.
So my pilot will be, if we're in an airspace that's controlled or impacted by them. The other frequency that, and this is much more common, is that we're gonna be up on the local CTAP and what our airport we're close by. So Truckee has a tower, so that's easy, right? We can check in with these guys. But like Cameron Park, Auburn, Grass Valley, Georgetown, any of these little airports, my pilot will just make regular every 5 minutes or so. Hey, firefighting activity going on, blah, blah, blah. And they're listening. So listening for people coming in on approach, or listening for people taxiing out. And that's part of his or her job up front, is to be monitoring that radio frequency. So yeah, so there's no way to know it other than just being cognizant, all right? Looking and being aware that these things exist, all right? And understanding to steer clear of that whole area. And that's where tonight's session comes in. Like, this is why I'm here. Everything from here forward is just for fun. It's for you to educate. I'll answer questions. I'll make stuff up. I should have figured out who has what experience in here, so I know which stories I can get away with, which ones are going to get called out on. But
Flying since I was 16 and never knew about this in 63. Just saying. You know,
I feel so honored to be the guy. After 63 years, I get to share this with you. I just opened to the world, right? All right, so one more thing on TFRs. Okay, so this is a map. This is our air operations map. This is for the North Complex fires. This is Quincy up here. This is what, I don't know, 5 years ago, 4 years ago. Fire started up here in Quincy, burned all the way on to Lake Oroville right here. Okay, so we had a TFR set up around that whole operation. So this purple blue line is our TFR. So if you looked on ForeFlight, that's all you would see, right? Okay, so rewind 20 years of my life. I'm flying a helicopter. We got to go. We're doing medical transport, right? Critical patient. We're trying to get to the hospital. We can't go through this legally because we're not a part of this problem, right? We have to go around it even as a life flight, right? So where do you think we're going to go? If we're down here in Grass Valley and we're trying to go to a hospital up here in Chico, right? So we can't go through it. This is like going to grandma's house, right? Can't go through it. We can go over it, but it's really high. So we're gonna go around it, right? And where are we gonna cut around it? Close to that TFR as we can, right? I don't have any data for this, but I'll tell you that probably one of the most dangerous places that you can be is near the corners of a TFR, particularly if it's large. All right, because everyone else is doing the same thing that you are, right? So I would recommend staying well clear of the corners of a TFR. All right, here's something else that you haven't known for 63 years. All right, it's a big night. All right, big night.
All right, that's not a big claim.
So this H right over here is Oroville Airport. All right, the H stands for heliport, helibase. All right, so our helibase on this particular fire was somewhere around 20 helicopters, maybe 25. I don't know, a lot, right? A good grip of helicopters there, right? And the black and yellow line here is our routes in and out of that TFR to put these helicopters to different assignments. Helicopters are only about 2, maybe 3 hours of working time. So they're going back and forth all day long, right? And this is the route that they're traveling, right? Is this route published anywhere? It's published on our fire maps. I could tell you how to get to the website if you want to check that every morning before you go out on your flight. But no, this doesn't pop up on ForeFlight or anything like that. Okay, a lot of people make the assumption that so long as I stay out of that TFR, I'm clear of all firefighting activity. False, right? So helicopters moving back and forth, usually 1,500, 2,500 feet AGL, right? Which is about the same altitude that a lot of GA aircraft is flying, right? What else is flying in and out of this TFR all day long? Tankers. Where are the tankers coming from? Well, in all kinds of places, right? I can list off probably 9 different air bases that were supporting this fire at different times or could have been. There's no way that you guys can keep up with that. So just, you have to be aware. So again, flight following, all right, is a good solid idea. All right. Being aware that if there's a big fire, there's a ton of activity all the way around that fire and laterally, radially going out from that fire to whatever support bases are supporting that fire, whether it's fixed wing, air tanker bases, heli bases, all that kind of stuff. All right. Don't cut the corners. Don't go through it. You can go over it. But keep in mind that are there any air tankers that are capable of going up high above over the TFR and mine be coming down through that space? All of our Type 1 aircraft that we use nowadays, BAE 146, 737, C-130s, they're all pressurized IFR aircraft, right? And just like passenger aircraft, get much better fuel economy, much better speeds, much better efficiency by going high. So do our tankers. Okay, particularly if the whole valley is smoked in from a whole bunch of fires, they'll pop above it and then drop down coming into it. All kinds of things to be scared of that you never knew existed. All right. So reasons that you might find yourself in an FTA. So we'll do this kind of interactive. Okay. Hopefully I've covered most of this at this point. So this is kind of like our interactive quiz. I'm the cool teacher that's going to help you through the test. All right. So reporting a new wildfire. Okay. Good idea, bad idea. Should you find yourself in this situation where you're in a fire traffic area because you're reporting a new wildfire? Should you yes or should you no? We should stay away from that. Why do we not have to worry about reporting a new wildfire? Cameras. There's no secret wildfires. All right.
We don't like it in the buffer. I'm kidding.
There's a couple of reasons for that, but yes, some of us are getting too old to do that anyway. Yeah. Curiosity. All right. I might find myself, yes.
Well, that's why I'm trying to help.
You're still stuck on his thing. Why
Morning thing I'm stuck on, because a lot of us obviously fly outside of California.
Yeah. Yeah.
This wouldn't be true. You should, like, I've always been told, you should always report any wildfire scene.
Yeah, I can't speak to that with a lot of credibility in a sense, or authority, because it depends on where you are. So I grew up in California, worked for the fire department when I was young, then got into the medical stuff, and then, like I said, I went and worked in Austin, Texas. The program I was at in Austin, we did firefighting stuff, we did rescue stuff, a lot of medical stuff primarily. It was amazing to me to see the difference in how this was almost 20 years ago, how different firefighting, wildland firefighting was in Texas than it was in California. Because at that time, Texas didn't do that much wildland firefighting. So they didn't have to be as good at it in that respect, right? In terms of how their systems work on a large scale. And what I'm getting at was things happen a lot different in Texas than they did in California. The wildfire cameras are going up all over the country, but nowhere as densely and as aggressively as they are in California. So I don't know where Oklahoma's at, or Texas is at, or Colorado's at on some of these systems. And so it might be absolutely appropriate to make a report in some of that kind of area. But what I would say is make your reports generalized, and I still wouldn't go close to that fire. Because this fire traffic area that I talked to you about, that I just blew, what's your name?
Michael.
That I blew Michael's mind with, happens all over the country. This is the exact same model that we use in Florida, Colorado, Idaho, and California. So the concept is, no matter where that fire is, if there's aerial firefighting in that area, they're using that fire traffic area, and there's aircraft at stacks going all the way above that. So either be well above it, or just skirted off the side, and when you call it in, be like, fire is somewhere near north of I-80 in the such and such area, and they'll find it. We can all see the smoke. So good question. And I hadn't really taken that into account as I was putting this presentation together. So yeah. Curiosity. If I just fly it over and see what's going on real quick, is that cool? All right. I just want to maybe if I don't make eye contact, I'll be all right, right? I just want to make sure someone's called it in. We're good there. Good. All right. There's no TFR, so it's legal for me to be there. There's no TFR, so it's legal for me to be there. True or false? True. It is true. It is legal. It's also legal to jump out of an airplane without a parachute, right? Doesn't mean it's a good idea, all right? It's legal to cut the corners around a TFR. Not a great idea though, right? So, so yeah, and this one I think is the one that catches a lot of people off. Well, that one and reporting too are the two big things. So, all right, so from here on out, it's kind of more interest sake. I've already gone longer than I expected on this first part, but I feel like we're answering a lot of questions, kind of hammering through this stuff. So I'll talk a little bit fast. There's a couple of videos I want to show you that are more fun than watching me talk. This is the summary. If you see smoke, stay at least 15 miles away. This right here is Grass Valley Air Tax. So this is the Battalion County Airport. That's my home. Any idea what fire this is? This was 3 years ago. This is Colfax right down in here. This is Alta Sierra and Grass Valley right here. So that'd be the river fire. The river fire. It's burning at the same time as the Dixie fire, but a huge stop for us. And we talk in a few minutes about retardant. I will show you a picture of what this fire looked like at the end of the day. The fact that any of this still exists, still amazing in my head. Like, it's amazing to me that we stopped that fire. It should have come straight out of that canyon, and it should have come straight up through Grass Valley, Alta Sierra, and into Grass Valley, and been an absolutely devastating fire. But we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So how we integrate with the ground attack. So we're going to switch gears. We're going to want to, like, what my job is, right? How do we get aircraft to support what's happening on the ground? Okay. We'll talk a little bit about general strategy. We'll talk about how retardant works, but mostly retardant is buying time for the guys on the ground. Okay. So air attack gets overseen. They establish the fire traffic area that we've been talking about all night. They coordinate the airspace. So I am air traffic control. I have to learn to talk like a pilot, right? I have to learn to think like an air traffic control. I have to have a backup plan, a double backup plan, and literally, like, I need to be like 3 or 4 plans deep, because stuff always changes, and you have these routing patterns, and expecting the fire to do this, and the wind shifts and blows out the whole left side when you had all your stuff on the right side, and now I got to shift everything from this side over to this side and keep it organized while you're doing it. So we're in with it. Has anyone here done air traffic control? Yeah, they're probably home like this. Stuff shifts really fast, and it takes 10 minutes to organize and move your whole show, move your whole system to a different plan. I direct air tankers and helicopters to suppress or slow the fire spread. Okay, so here's a quick picture. This fire, it's actually burning backwards. I was not on this fire, did not take this picture. Usually the fire is coming up the hill towards the infrastructure, which usually is multiple millions of dollars of stuff that's far more susceptible to fire than people realize, and very impactful. So protecting infrastructure is a big part of what we do. But you can see this is a grass fire. Can't see any flames, but you see a little bit of smoke down here, right? In the grass. Again, I'm 2,500 feet above the fire. I'm half a mile above the fire where I'm looking down. So my visibility is a lot less precise than what most people understand or think. You can see that one existing retardant drops right here, but the fire's already kind of burning through it right here. We're bringing another one in. Ideally, I know what they wanted to do is try and tie this drop to this one, so you have a continuous line of retardant around that fire. But this fire already got ahead of them. And you see all that smoke there? That's all active burning grass right there. So they're putting down retardant down in front of that. This was a fire down south. Again, not my fire, but a great picture of what it looks like when you get on scene of a fire that's completely taken off and blown away. Like, we will not catch this fire. This is absolutely firmly within that 5% of fires in California that we are not going to catch in the first afternoon. Okay, so you can see there's no fire engines there. There's 2 fire chief trucks right here, and nothing. No bulldozers, no fire engines, nothing, right? So this thing, literally, as the first air attack is getting on scene, he's taking this picture of this fire that's already probably 60 to 80 acres and exploding out of there. If you can see flame lakes, I'll just say, here's some trees, right? These are all oak trees. So oak trees are probably, what, 30 or 40 feet high? All right, look at those flame lakes right there. They're every bit of that 40 feet of flame lakes, and you can't see it underneath you here. I could take 8 DC-10s and drop right across this head and have 0 impact on that fire. Why? Wind blows what? Embers, right? There's a tremendous amount of embers, like pine cones, sticks over that river fire I showed you a picture of. There literally was a piece of plywood that was circling around above that fire for like 10 minutes. Multiple pilots saw it. We were trying to stay clear of the area. The amount of thermal lift and convective lift on a really rapidly burning fire is insane and tremendous. All right. So we also don't fly underneath this column. Sometimes we do. We flew under the column yesterday. I came back, the whole front of my plane was black. All right. Black from all the stuff that we were hitting as we flew underneath that column of air. So all this is carrying up embers and lofting embers. By embers, I mean pine cones and sticks and twigs and small dogs. They're all getting lifted and dropped out in front of that fire, sometimes half a mile ahead on the river fire, I had stuff going 2 miles ahead. The glass fire that we'll see here in just a minute, literally it jumped the whole Napa Valley from one side of the fire to the other side, right? That was like 3 to 4 miles for the spot fire. So I could put all the retardant in the world in front of that fire, and it's not going to stop it. It's just going to roll past it. So in that situation, we grab an anchor and we just start flanking up the side, whichever side is our higher priority. So I would anticipate a fire engine showing up from here or here very quickly, and there's a lot lower fire intensity here. I can take 2 tanker drops and go from this road all the way down to this road and hold that fire in there and allow the bulldozers or the fire engines or whatever it is to get in there and actually put out that fire. I do not put out the fire with a retardant. It slows it down. It takes fire flames that are this high and makes them smolder. And that allows the ground crews to get in there and actually put the fire out. So that's when we say we support the ground, that is literally what we do. We do not extinguish the fire. We hold it up and we buy time. So part of my strategy is trying to figure out how much time. Do I need to offset my retardant a little bit to give the fire engines a little bit more time to get there? Or do I want to just keep reinforcing that as that fire keeps chunking through?
So since the winds are at a real disadvantage, but at night things calm down, Jeff. So what capabilities are you going to cover? What is possible tonight?
So one of the biggest things that we're using now, we started last year and we've invested heavily in it this year. Now we have 6. Last year we had 3 Chinooks on contract. This year we have 6 Chinooks on contract. They can fight fire at night using night vision goggles. So we're utilizing, they drop 2,500 gallons of water with each drop, or we can load them up with retardant in certain situations. So we are moving that way. We're still nowhere near a spot where we feel comfortable putting our air tanker pilots in that environment. Tanker pilots are some of the most phenomenal pilots in the world. They take aircrafts at max load, fly them at their slowest speed over terrain, and these kind of thermal dynamics are going along with this with 10 of their closest buddies in a half-mile circle, and then drop down close to the ground in the wind and try and drop retardant. It's massively overwhelming. Half of my pilots are military, half came from the civilian tracks. All of them say that this is far above anything that they've ever done in mission profile, whether they're flying C-17s or F-16s. They're like, this environment is the most challenging flying that we kind of have. So we're not there on the next step. Let's talk about it. I'm not going to say it's never going to happen, but we're not quite there yet. Good question. So for me, I'm managing all these aircraft. Like I said yesterday, I had 11 aircraft. This is what I have. I have 4 flight on my left leg, and I have a notepad on my right. So it's a lot of 3D chess in your head. All right. So that's where having systems and flows and a playbook is my lifeline. That's the only way I can keep up with that. I have, like I said, 9 radios that we're listening to. Not all 9 of them are talking at the same time, hopefully. But it does get pretty overwhelming. Regularly, I'm having 2 or 3 conversations at the same time on 3 different radio frequencies that no one else can hear each other, but I can hear all 3. 1 talking to helicopters, 1 talking to a tanker that's checking in, and 3 talking to the fire chief on the ground about clearing the section line or something like that. So I'll just play this clip for a little bit. This is on the glass fire a couple years ago in Calistoga. I'm coming in, I'm taking a briefing from the off-going air attack. So I'm coming into the fire and he's going off.
So was the ADSP for your job a changer?
It is, but not as much as you would think. Because ADSP really is for, like, we're all, like, again, we look like a little nest, a little hornet's nest on it. So really, for me, having the ability to have a high visibility airplane platform is my biggest tool, because I can see where my aircraft are, and that's why I'm up on top. The ADSB is just, it doesn't help when you're in that tight confined space.
All right.
So good question. So I'll play this just for 30 seconds or so. When we get done, I'll have a couple questions about what's going on, and you guys can see if you can understand what's happening. Well, I know the speaker's not super loud, but just we'll take a listen.
Okay, that's where the dozers are currently going direct into the drainage, working with Copter 104. As we continue south on the fire's edge, brings us into the community of Banquet, point protection, structure defense with the tankers. Break.
A quarter mile up from the valley floor, and they're running from west.
Okay, quarter mile up from the valley floor, east to west, high tension wires. How far in relation to the ponds were they?
They split in between the 2 that we were working.
230 air attack back. Limited ground resources in the Angwin area. Not a lot of the retardant lines getting reinforced. Break.
Would you get a little closer? I'll run through the check, yeah.
And what's that dip that 104 is working on right now?
29 Schomburg Road.
Dip's unidentified.
Stop there because there's a couple more things I want to cover. So what area are we at? Down here, what town? The community of Angwin. All right. What was the name of the dip site that Copper was working out of? It was undefined. What was the helicopter coordinator telling to his helicopter was a hazard going across the valley above the dip site? High tension power lines. You can hear that, right? And then what was the dispatch center dispatching a new call for off of Rutherford Road? It was a chest pain call, medical call. It was just on the same channel, right? So that's it. That 4 hours, right? So I go home. I'm like, I don't need to do any chores. I just need you to feed me, and I'm just going to sit here. My pilot always jokes, those new sports channels where you can watch 6 different games at the same time. He calls that Air Attack TV. So we have standard stuff that will come in. We have different tools and stuff that we can set up. We'll set up fences and stuff like that to move aircraft around and routes and checkpoints and IPs and all that kind of stuff. It gets most fires aren't like that, or I would quit tomorrow or yesterday. But we definitely get a number of those during the summer. And again, if it's a big fire, we're doing that for 3 hours, and it is ridiculously overwhelming. We literally come back, I'll turn the lights off, and I just sit in a chair and just like do nothing. So when it all works together, this is a still fire. So this is a 5-minute video. What you'll hear when this opens up is the dispatch. So our dispatch center is dispatching us to this new fire. Then we'll roll in. I'll be talking to the incident commander, IC, on the ground. So we have a fire chief on the ground, fire chief in the sky, and we work together very, very closely. I'll be routing in some of my tankers for drops. I'll be sequencing some of my helicopters in and out of those tankers. And that's all stuff that you'll hear as we go through this little video. So the tones at the very beginning are what sets our pagers off. So I'll let you go hear this.
Battalion 2314, Chief 6200, Air Attack 230, Tanker 88, Copter 514, Copter 6 Whiskey Lima, Higgins Fire Engine 2351, Engine 2361, Engine 2372, Engine 2382, Breast 23, Transport Dozer 2341, Water Tender 23, Water Tender 88, Placer Crew 3, Vegetation Fire for a grass fire approximately 50 yards, 11362 Still Road, across the Aguilar Lane and Rab on Valley Road. Stand by for check back 1146.
230 rolling.
230 to 1151.
Garage, L engine 2370.
County Traffic Air Tech 230 is taxiing off the CalFire right for a left turn southbound departure off of runway 25. 2 air tanks.
About 5 acres in grass and brush, moving at a moderate to dangerous rate of spread.
Any traffic en route to the still incident in the Lake of the Pines area. Air Attack 230 is currently lifting off Nevada County Airport, showing 11 miles to the east. Headed for 4,000, altimeter 2994, identify on Air Tactics 3. Copter 6, Whiskey Lima, Air Tech. We're showing about 4 miles out. We'll be 4,000, altimeter 2994. I have 2 tankers at 3,000. You cleared in 2,000 or below. Looking for hazards and have you hold at 2 miles and check. Actually hold over Lake of the Pines.
Hold over Lake of the Pines, 2 miles out. Was it 2994?
Still, I see. Still Air Attack. Air to ground 3.
Go ahead, Air Attack.
All right, fire's probably looking at 20 acres right now. Moderate rate of spread. At least one structure involvement. Has not crossed Wolf Road. We're going to put a pretty good stand to see if we can hold it, keep it from crossing. So I make that one of your priorities. Most of the actions towards the head. We are getting short range spotting.
I copy. Wolf Road head is priority. Structure defense, I'll come back and give you some division assignments here in a minute.
Copy that. I did that.
89's arriving on scene at 3,000 at your 4 o'clock.
89 on scene. Sorry, the channel repeat. Yeah, that structure, that mobile home right ahead there. direct action, direct structure protection there. And that light grass covers level 4. Clear maneuver.
Okay, I need to get one more look at it.
Gilliam is holding over Lake of the Pines. I'll go in for the dip, and then I'll call you coming out. Copy that. 6 is going, let's move you over to the Rotor Victor 127325. Moving.
Is 8-9 clear to maneuver?
9 clear maneuver.
8-9 is, let's see, turning base. 8-9 on a final.
9 final. Line is clear, clear to drop.
Fire on the left, everything else on the right.
8-9 clear and empty.
8-9, good start, good line, low return, crest off.
8-9.
Still air attack tanker 889 to the north.
Copter 6, Whiskey Lima, you're cleared in number 2 behind tanker 88 on a right base to final right now. Now we bring you up to the head.
Copy that, got her in sight, and I'll stay clear of her drop, and I'm behind her, and copy that up to the head.
Copter 514, you're cleared in.
Turn final.
88 final. Tanker 514, you'll be cleared in number 2 after 88's departure. They'll be coming out overhead, head back to Krussow. Line is clear, clear to drop.
See right there, I was having 2 different conversations, helicopter and the tanker pilot.
Tanker 88, air attack.
88.
Just tag and extend off of 103's drop. Covers level 4. Clear maneuver. Copters are holding out.
Do you want me to start angling it in a bit or go in direct there at the end?
Yeah, keep it just a little bit wide. It's going to be a while before we get some dozers in there.
Okay, I'll just take his line. Clear, I'm maneuvering.
Copy that, clear maneuver. IC air attack, go ahead.
Yeah, I had some frequency changes there. I probably missed you if you had any traffic. Just looking for an update, how we're looking.
Still holding around 25 to 30 acres. Fire behavior is moderated just a little bit. Working on getting retardant line up that left flank.
Okay, send it downwind.
And then we'll try and wrap that head. It still has not crossed Wolf. 88 downwind.
See, this is a great drop. See that retardant goes down and just tie into that road right there. Which tied up that whole left side of the fire. They typically drop the entire load of the retardant at once, but they go multiple. We can the doors are open as long as the button is pushed. And either it comes empty, or if they get to the end of where the line is, they'll let off the button, the door slams shut like it was fast. Hey, slam shut. So then we can get multiple drops out of one tank. So this kind of takes us to 7 o'clock, which is our end time. I can talk for a couple minutes about retardant, but I don't want to keep anyone later than you guys need to be. And is there anything else you would need to cover before we're done? So I just got 3 or 4 more slides pictures, but retardant is fertilizer. It's ammonium phosphate. So it's great for the vegetation. The fish aren't crazy about it. If it gets too heavy concentrated in a place where there's fish are, it can be fish kill. But at lower levels, it's not toxic. You try and always avoid any waterway by 300 feet. That's a big part of my job, is to identify that so we don't create anything to the fish. The retardant itself is non-toxic. It's ammonium phosphate. It has a bright red dye in it so that we can see where it is, which I'll show you here in a second. Which is it's UV sensitive. Within 30 days after the drop it, you'll hardly be able to see where it was. But the retardant itself, the slowing capabilities stay on that vegetation until either it rains or the vegetation growth kind of flakes off of it. So it will stay there for the rest of the summer. And I've actually had fires where I had an existing retardant from an earlier fire that I used on my new fire. It kind of tied in and made it work that way. It's bright red, so you can see it. We can see how thick it is, whether it's coverage enough, or it's all tied in, and it helps the pilots line up and see where to make their drops. How effective is it? A picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And I'll show you a couple pictures here. So this is a grass fire down by Beale Air Force Base is up over here. This is the road just outside of Beale. A motorhome caught on fire right here on a windy day, and it was blowing through all the grass here. When I got on scene, the fire was basically had a shape kind of like this. So basically, a wind-driven fire. So I put one tanker drop, first one all the way across that head. So that's a full drop. And we'll tell the pilots what coverage level to do it at. So how thick or heavy it is. In the grass, we can go really light, which gives us a much longer line. But in the heavy trees, we have to go really thick, which gives us a very short line. So we put a drop across the head. I put my second tanker. We drop this. Actually, I can tell it's going this way on that drop. We came back this way going on this drop. Kind of boxed it in. So the fire was like this. It came up. We hit this retardant, and it keeps flanking up. Right, it keeps coming up until it hit this retardant. My goal is to hold it until the fire engines, there's one there and a couple here, are able to get up here, get all the way around that, and fully suppress and put out that fire. Okay. These are two other fires. This is the Rice's fire down in Yuba County, maybe 3 years ago. Started out a house fire down here, went up this really steep. It all looks flat from there, which I tell the firefighter all the time. It looks flat. You should be able to get that really easy. But it was actually quite a steep hill here. And this is the fire that as soon as we got on scene, it was still contained to the house. I knew that we were going to lose this fire from the time we got on scene. I started ordering additional aircraft. This is why these are the kind of fires, all of them, are why we send air tankers to every fire from the 911 dispatch. So when we got over this fire, we had been on another one. There was a false alarm, literally cleared off of that one. I was here to talk. It took us 10 or 15 minutes to talk the fire engines all the way back down these little dirt roads to get in here. There was a barn on fire. So I put my first tanker drop before it ever even left that barn. We put a tanker drop right across here. Or I'm sorry, it's right here. So the barn's right there. Tanker drop right across here. And as she was making the drop, she said she could see a spot for already in the field out of her left window. She was dropping. I doubled my aircraft order right then. And we were going and we were off. So the very next tanker who was with me right there, put the second drop right here. But again, because of that spotting that we were talking about before, spotted right across that and it's gone. So this is about 40 minutes into the fire. Already at this point, I have 6 or 8 air tankers on this, and some big ones, putting big lines all the way down the side. We're not able to stop it at the head, so I just try and steer it. Try and keep it as narrow as I can so we can keep it managed. My big goal in this was to keep it out of this Yuba River Canyon, because once our fires get into big canyons, they become really big and tough. So that's where retardant. You can see this retardant was holding for a while and it started burning through there. So we come back and reinforce it with some more retardant. You can see right there, it's just burned through that retardant line again, right? So retardant holds it up, it slows it down, but all it does is buys time. Fire keeps chunking through there. Okay. This was a fire down by Loma Rica. And you can see same thing. The retardant is what held us in, and the bulldozer was coming up underneath through the smoke and cutting line to hold that side of the fire.
So, does the fire walk backwards against the wind?
Yes.
Kind of looks like that sort of
Yeah, it will. So this fire actually started up over here somewhere, and it still goes back against that wind, not nearly as fast as it goes with the wind. On this particular fire, this is all strategy stuff. So I see a bunch of green fields out in front of it and a 2-lane road. So I was not worried about this fire like getting away from us. I just had it holding in this area right here. So in fact, this might have been the fire, or there was one later this summer. It was right in the same area that I reused one of these retardant lines. It was probably later this summer, because it was this retardant line that I used on another fire to protect this house later the same summer. This one was an arson fire. And ironically enough, the arson lived right here. So no one said they're smart. So this is that picture of the river fire I was telling you about. So looking the other way. So my airport's up here, Grass Valley. This is all Alta Sierra up over here. Colfax is all over here. This is I-80 running through here. Rollins Lake right there. This fire started down in the canyon, exploded out of here. There's our first tanker drop. We're at a spot. It started right here. the first spot was right there. We put a tanker drop across here and it just blew up this hill. And there's 6 or 8 houses all along up here. So the fire engines come up there to try and protect those houses. And you can see how it's just completely nuked off right here. When the fire lined up and hit that, and literally roared over the top, pinched and trapped all my fire engines up there. So in the first 20, 30 minutes of this fire, I had 6 fire engines with their crews all trapped up here. So we're having the helicopter get water out of here, come up this canyon, up underneath the smoke column, and we're able to drop water on those firefighters right there. And then if all of our attention was on this right side where all the houses, evacuations in town was, there's roads and stuff, the fire engines could all get in here off of I-80. But it takes, for anyone that knows this area, it takes about 20 minutes to come back down, come across Dog Bar, come up Dog Bar Road up here. So we didn't have the resources to commit to that side, trying to focus on the life safety, which is all on this side. In the back, what you can't quite see here, is still going on, is the Dixie fire. So we were at extreme resource drawdown because the Dixie fire was going on. But that, in a sense, helped us out on this fire because any new fires can take priority over an existing big fire. We're trying to keep it small and put it out. Exactly this case study, right? So I took all of the air tankers off of the Dixie fire. So within probably 30 or 40 minutes, I had 3 DC-10s, I had 8 Type 1 big air tankers, and then all the S2s. And we were supplying all the big ones out of McClellan, reloading, and all my small ones out of Grass Valley. We put over 250,000 gallons of retardant on this left flank of the fire in one afternoon. This fire started around 3 to 3:30 in the afternoon. And by dark, so 8:30 that night, we put 250,000 gallons of retardant. That's never happened. I don't think anywhere in history because that couldn't happen. Because we couldn't have done it if we went close to McClellan and close to my tanker base. And that retardant is all that was here all afternoon until about midnight, 2, 3 in the morning when dozers finally were able to get down here and not in this line. I fully expect to come out the next morning and have this just completely blown out this way and pushing up toward Alpha Sierra. Those dozers were amazing heroes in my head. But just talking about the effectiveness of retardant, it is something that's in the news from time to time. Should we be using retardant or not? Grass Valley would not exist today. No question if we didn't have retardant put down this fire. So that's all I got. Thank you guys for your time. I'll take any questions that you guys have.
So, our purpose is different. TFRs are part of the service from the pilots need to be aware of. Smoke is a big issue that can persist for days, yes, miles. I use a tool called FTAR to try and forecast where smoke's headed.
Which one is yours? Airfire?
Airfire.
I would love to find a good resource for that. I'll just tell you right now. What's it called?
Airfire.org, and there's a tool called Blue Sky. And you pick your region, pick your time.
Blue Sky I'm aware of. And some of these link back to some predictive services that NASA's working with. If the scientists don't work for us, I don't know. But predicting smoke dispersion is extremely difficult. And we try to play that game. We'll be like, oh, the smoke's all going to go this way, so we're going to move all our tankers over here so we don't get smoked out tomorrow morning. We move them all over to Ukiah, smoke gets smoked out, and then we lost all of them. So we don't even play that game anymore. But particularly when you have multiple fires, trying to predict smoke, I'll tell you right now, with our current technology, it's basically impossible. And it's a huge issue for us.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
If you want to come up with a perfect working way system, I'll support you. It's great.
Can restrict use of cooler towards stress value.
So a good question. So how do we restrict the use of the airport during the middle of a firing operation? We don't. We have no legal parameter to shut down an airspace unless we put it under a TFR. We have no legal parameter to take over the airspace. So when the airport. So if we're working out of an airport, we'll load up with our retardant. Our pilots are pulling out. If we're going on a brand new fire, we'll say, and you heard AirTac 230, taxiway Alpha fire dispatch. That's us saying, hey, just so you know, we're going to a fire. You don't have to give way to us or yield, but it's great if you do, particularly when the fire is going towards your house. But yeah.
You ever look at the business?
Absolutely. So that's the next thing is Grass Valley. We have it set up like my airport manager gets a text every time we're going to fire, and if we start doing load returns, he'll immediately go on and put a recording onto the airport advisory. So anybody coming in that's checking that will hear this. And he'll actually say, heavy airport traffic due to firefighting, we recommend you avoid the area. What he means by that is we recommend you avoid the area. But you can still jump in. I mean, we can't keep you out of the airport, but
You guys use that 737 step, the Australian one?
so there's yes. So the company that owns that is Coulson, which is an American-based company. They sold that one to Australia. It comes up usually every spring or part of our summer because their seasons are opposite ours, right? So once their fire season starts winding down, a lot of times they're sending their aircraft up, and it is right now. So it's right now based at McClellan. I used them on the fire yesterday. It's tanker 210, tanker 210. But Coulson is also converting several more 737s to be air tankers. They carry 4,000 gallons, and it's a pretty good platform for it.
John's a Bronco pilot, and he's had his hand up a few times.
Oh,
I want to hear from him.
pilot. You came down and saw us last.
Yeah,
Yeah.
down again in Valley Crossing. So
Yeah.
we're flying today. We'll talk about that offline. I had a question about the radios. Are you on the same frequency as your pilot is? Or are you on different?
Oh, good question. So, so in the Bronco, or actually any of our air attack equipped aircraft, the radio package is set up so that the pilot and the air attack officer, whether they're side by side, like in King Air or Commander or something, or they're forward or back in the Bronco, we can both listen to all the radios. So actually, I'll use mine as a better example because I'm in the back seat, he's in the front seat, right? I have 3 radios in the back, he has 3 radios in the front. I can't touch his radios, he can't touch mine, but we both have mixer panels, so we can monitor all the radios. We have separate volumes so my volumes are how I keep track of which radios are talking, right? My most important one's loudest, my less important one's quiet, and I can modulate that all the time. And then my dial, I can talk on any radio within that aircraft. And then 3 of our radios, so 2 in the back, 1 in the front, have 2 radios in the radio, the Technosonics. So then I can toggle between the top and the bottom. But if I have to toggle back and forth on the front radio, my pilot has to toggle the switch one. But I can select which radio I'm talking on in that regard. So we can each hear each other's radios, and we'll modulate our volumes and kind of a working plan. I'm like, all right, you have radio number 1 and number 2. I'm turning down number 2. I need you to pick up them. So we work that out. It's a good question.
What is that website that you mentioned where you guys do publish more of the details on the maps?
ftp.wildfire.org, or you just type in, I think it'll Google it. But if you Google wildfire maps, FTP is kind of the cue for Google to always take you right to that page. It's a little cumbersome, and you have to understand if it's a federal owned fire or a state owned fire. Every fire has different jurisdictions because everything has to be paid for, right? So everything that's paid for. And when I started as an 18-year-old firefighter, I just thought everyone was a fireman out of the goodness of their hearts. But it turns out that all of us as firefighters now, as a more experienced one, I realized that I actually need a paycheck out of this deal. It's not just for fun. Fire engines cost money, airplanes cost a ton of money, right? So every fire has a jurisdiction of who owns it, and that determines which frequencies we go off of, how we're running it, a lot of the management stuff, who's paying for it. But if you know whose fire it is, then you know where on the FTP site to look for that incident. But if you scramble or poke around long enough, you'll figure it out, right? Because everything in California is under one folder. It's just a folder system. And what you're looking for when you get in there is you'll go into the maps and intel and then look for the air operations map.
What's the guesstimate when you get a call? What's it costing the taxpayers to do options?
Man, I don't know, and if I did, I don't know if I'd admit to it.
Less than fire.
It costs less than the Dixie fire. Yeah, I will assure you of that. The average is super rough, and I probably shouldn't even quote, especially since I'm online. The average, when a fire gets big enough that we have to commit a whole incident management team to it and all that kind of stuff, like it turns into what we call a major incident. It's usually, when you get all done and you look backwards and average it across, the average is around $1 million a day. So that no matter what we commit, in fact, this is a common strategy. This is like a business management practice within CalFire, is you cannot overspend a fire on its first day. Right? You cannot overspend a fire on its first day. So my fire yesterday was 180 acres, right? You could go back and be like, I've had fires that were less than 10 acres that I know just by my map, it was up in the heavy timber, super hard to get access plays with the Royal Fire, right? The Royal Fire was last year right out of here on Donner Pass, right? We together, so Brian and I were, that started out, it was a Forest Service fire. So my Forest Service air attack partner took it the first shift. I took the second shift. He took the third shift. That one started maybe 2 p.m. Without looking it up, just going straight off memory, probably we had 30 or 40 tanker drops on that fire in that one afternoon. So if I did the math, it would be more than any of us want to pay. But I can absolutely assure you that if we did not hold that in fire retardant, we would, most of everything between here and the King Fire burn scar would all be black. So that's kind of that's my short answer to that. I had someone, a tanker pilot who's been doing this for a really long time. He's like, you cannot outspend a fire in its first burn period. Like, I absolutely found that to be pretty sound advice.
Fun fact, a couple of years ago, well, and then one of your pilots, President of Tankers, Kevin was a 737, it might have been taken then. And really cool guy, and he told me that one of the features of that aircraft, but he said they have this permission from the FAA to install like a kill switch on the ground proximity warning system and the gear up system and all that stuff. Because when they come in, you can't have it say, oh, yeah, gear up. No, that's so they said they shut it off. They said they get like 2 minutes or something like that. Yeah, back on again. But I think that's pretty cool. And he said he always, whenever he goes out to work, they install the fire. So he's taking off, he's heading towards the smoke. He said he always questions his word choices like that. You know, everybody else is getting away from it.
There's a number of times I question my own thought. I'm like, I have a career of going the wrong way. Everything the disaster that's happening. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is intimidating. I have some pictures too, but like, yeah, you're like, what am I doing right now? Like the center gravity. Oh yeah, it's a big deal. And if you guys want to read an interesting book, what's the name of it? I'll have to think of it. It's a fascinating book. It wasn't a great writer. It wasn't, like Mark Twain or anything, but fascinating stories. One of the original tanker pilots back when they were developing the program, and center of gravity issue is a huge issue, right? Because you're discharging 8,000 pounds in a few seconds, right? And again, pitch up and pitch down would kill a lot of pilots in the past as they were developing air tankers and developing which aircraft to utilize and all that kind of stuff. And if anyone's interested in the book, I can look it up. But yeah, it was definitely a big deal. Definitely a big deal. Our current tanks are called constant velocity tanks, and they're designed instead the old ones, which had 4 or 5 sets of doors that you would open. These ones have just one set of doors, and it's computer controlled. And I thought about pointing it out, but there's too much going on. But it's set up based on the head pressure of how much fluid is in that tank. And like I said, our new C-130s, the tanks are about 7 feet tall and really narrow to put as much pressure as we can on those doors. But as the doors open, they'll click open and they'll so as that fluid drops out, you get less and less head pressure. The doors open farther and farther, so you get a very constant, long, solid line that's very predictable and easy to work with. Yeah, great questions. Thank you guys for your time.
Yeah. On behalf of Truckee Safety Program, I'll thank you with it.
Yeah, I'll take it. Thank you.
Thanks. Dave's gonna stick around a little bit if you guys have more questions, but otherwise, thanks for coming out. Happy Juneteenth, and we'll see you next month at Burning Man.
Yeah.
I forgot the raffle. One raffle. Sorry about that. Yeah, as soon as I introduced Dave earlier. Raffle. All right, raffle winner.
All these people are like,
yeah, that's
tired talk.
That's why I ordered raffle. Class A t-shirt. Size medium. This is going to 576 268. 268. Wait for it. Here's the service first. You said it at medium? Yeah, if you're gonna look at it. The kids on there. I don't know, 530 extra large. That's more like it, right? All right, this one's going to 576 273. There he is. Big winner. Hey, thanks everybody on Zoom. Black Saint hat. The blue version. This one's going to 576-270. 27. All right, there you are. And the grand prize tonight, I dug this out of the archive. I didn't even know we still had anything, but this is a Truckee Tahoe Airport umbrella. A couple years ago at our air show, we had a few of these as prizes we were doing, and you wouldn't believe how fast these went. Anyway, I swear it's the Truckee Airport on there somewhere, but this one's gone too. 576-277. There he is. All right, that's it for tonight. Thanks for coming out. I'll see y'all in everyone. Thank you.